The views expressed in this program do not reflect the views of the staff, management, or licensee of this station. This is 91.7 FM, WHUS Stores. I am Peddler Ron, and you are listening to Bicycle Talk, episode 392, to be broadcast on April 24th, 2024, on WHUS 91.7 FM and WHUS.org. Welcome to Bicycle Talk with my friendly co-host, the lovely Dr. Fran Storch. If you are listening or watching on Facebook Live, feel free to comment. We should be able to respond. Bicycle Talk is a show where we talk about bicycles, bicycle culture, bicycle advocacy, upcoming news in cycling, the bicycle business, and the bicycle calendar. If you have a comment or you'd like to contribute information to the show and are listening on Facebook Live, you can just comment down here below. Or you can send me an email at bicycletalk, the numeral 1, @gmail.com. You can also listen to past episodes of Bicycle Talk on WHUS.org, iTunes, Spotify, and now on my Bicycle Talk YouTube channel. Rant's Rant of the Week. Take the bus, Junior, or as it's sometimes called, the big yellow limo. Before the pandemic, about 55% of kids with at least one parent who had a 4-year college degree were driven or drove to school. By 2022, that was 62%. Their bus ridership fell by a corresponding amount. That was February 2nd of 2024. California buses, a smaller share of its public school students than any other state. Fewer than 9% of students compared to 33% nationwide, according to the most recent National Household Travel Survey by the Federal Highway Administration. That was from June 22nd, 2022. So why do I bring this up now? Because May is coming. And May is Bike Month, and the third week in May includes Bike to Work and Bike to School days. That's my rant today. We'll talk about it more in the show. On a positive side, hey, Franny.
Yes.
Happy Earth Day.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's Earth Day. Today is Earth Day. Well, actually, by the time this broadcast hits, it will be 2 days after Earth Day, but every day should be Earth Day because you should always honor your mother, Earth. Right. So anyway, Earth Day, big deal. Big deal. You know, it's like cycling and Earth Day are kind of weird. We kind of fit together. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? You ride your bike, you're being good to the earth. It's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. Sometimes you're riding on the earth. Sometimes you flip over the bars and you fall on the earth. But anyway, every day should be an Earth Day. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. So there's all sorts of Earth Day activities going on in your area, I'm sure. I know we have a big one planned for this weekend here in the town of Mansfield, of which I will be attending and talking to folks about our Farm to Families program that we offer through Human Services here in town. It's cool, very cool. So that's one positive side. I got a list. The last two classics. La Flèche Wallonne, which was on April 17th on Wednesday, and the Liege Bastion Liege, which was yesterday. That is cycling's old lady, as they call it, or Le Donné. And Belgium's French-speaking Walloons officially call it. Founded back in 1892, it's easily the oldest of the cycling's 5 monuments, and it's often the most difficult to win. Why? Because it's just really long, and oh my God, if you saw the conditions yesterday, you'd know why. Actually, on both of those races, the conditions were ridiculous. We'll talk a little more about it in the show. So, on another positive side, call your local officials and find out how you can participate or volunteer for Bike to School or Bike to Work days. Yeah. Get the interest out there within your town. Talk to them, see what you can find out. Do you have a bicycle-friendly organization in your town that you can contact? We have one here in Mansfield called Bike Mansfield. I know that there was a Bike Walk Glastonbury post, which I'm going to bring up on my next positive side. And, so you can find these bike walk or bike-oriented organizations in almost all the towns now. It's really very cool. Another thing on a positive side, on a positive note, I will say, industry members in Taiwan say that earlier in this month there was a 7.4 magnitude earthquake did little more than shake up residents and possibly knock some products off the shelves. Everybody's cool in Taiwan. Glad to hear that. There's a lot of people in the industry there, so it's always good to hear that. And hot off the presses and Bike Walk Glastonbury, we have learned today, this just came out, that the Putnam Bridge Trail will open on May 10th. Yeah. You know that Putnam Bridge over there that runs between Glastonbury and Wethersfield? And they finally did some construction on the bridge, which took years and years and years and years to do. And they put this lovely little bike and pedestrian lane on one side of the bridge, but there was no way to get to it. Guess what? May 10th, they're opening it up. So now you will be able to ride your bike across the Putnam Bridge, which is really cool because otherwise you had to either hope that the Rocky Hill Ferry was running and you could take the ferry across in that part of the state, or you had to go all the way up to Hartford or all the way down to Middletown to be able to get across the Connecticut River. So this is a big deal, and this is something that I remember going to a bike walk, Connecticut bike walk annual meeting one year, and we had a guest speaker, and the guest speaker was the new Department of Transportation person who is probably no longer there, but he had moved up here from New Jersey, and one of the things that he had said was on his hit list was to get that Putnam Bridge walkway finished and connected, and it got finished. It just never got connected. It's complicated. There's a lot of water there. There's there's the Wethersfield Cove, which is essentially the overflow of the Connecticut River. When the river comes up, it's a little complicated. But anyway, that's good news. May 10th. Might have to go check that out and see if maybe there's a ribbon cutting or something. That might be a cool thing to attend, just because, we're showing our support for what they're doing there. I think that that's probably something I'm going to do. That would be a fun thing. And of course, we'll talk more about other things that are bicycle related in the show. And on the positive side, mechanical minute and cycling tips. Okay, so people ask me all the time, how much do you ride? Well, currently, not a whole heck of a lot, because I'm dealing with an issue, which hopefully will go away really soon. We're hoping within the next 2 weeks I'll have some positive results here, and I'll be able to get back on my bike like a real human being instead of what's been going on with me. But that's beside the point. Factors to consider when determining how often to ride. Yeah, that's a good question. How often should you ride? So you should ride as often as you want to ride. That's how often you should ride. That's my very, very simple explanation for this. But if you're looking for something in particular, if you're looking for a goal of, performance or training or something like that, then, you might have to alter that around. But it really is, and it says here, a solid results-driven training plan isn't a one-size-fits-all. What works for another cyclist might not work for you. The best program is the one that's tailored to the individual based on the variety of lifestyle and performance-related factors and it can be modified as availability, priorities, and training requirements.
And it's also the one you'll do.
It is the one you'll do, and that's it. So factors to consider when you're determining how much to ride or how often to ride. Before drafting up a training schedule, you might want to take time to understand, who you are as an athlete on or off the bike, and you consider factors like goals. First thing to sort out is your ultimate goal. Why are you riding in the first place? I ride my bike because it's fun. I ride my bike because I like being fit and I enjoy the feeling of that. And I'm also enjoy the health-related aspects that I get from that, which is really, really good. I also ride my bike because I like to eat. And if you like to eat and you don't ride a bike and you don't do anything active, then eating will catch up with you. So you can be a little bit, you can get yourself a little over your head there. But you want to take a look at your goals and see what you're trying to do. Are you trying to relieve stress and bank those 150 minutes of CDC recommended cardio each week? 150 minutes a week. So that's just like 3 days. It's not many days. Anyway, are your goals more performance related? So a casual cyclist who mixes time on the bike with other forms of exercise like running, swimming, or group fitness classes doesn't need to ride as frequently as someone who's training for a race. And a cyclist with ambitions to make the podium will likely ride more days per week than someone who just wants to finish. Or they'll ride at a different intensity. I'm going to add to that. If someone is just trying to ride their very first century, or 100-mile ride or 100-kilometer ride, they can get away with 2 or 3 or 4 days a week of training. But a more competitive cyclist will train closer to 5 or 6 days a week. And it really comes down to, I mention this a lot in the show. I talk about it quite a bit. It's, you look at hours as far as this goes, and I'm going to get to this in just a second, but I don't look at miles anymore. Miles, and I have long departed because I found myself getting a little bit obsessed with numbers. And well, last year I rode 3,000 miles, so this year I have to ride 3,200 miles, or this year I have to ride 4,000 miles. That is going to be the demise of your loving cycling, is what that's going to turn into. It's just not going to be fun. So I look at it in hours, and here it goes right here. This particular article, by the way, is from Bicycling Magazine that I'm reading off of and paraphrasing off of. But this particular person notes that cycling frequency is only one variable in the competitive training plan equation. Weekly volume in terms of hours spent on the bike is just as important. Here we go. Most amateur riders that this gentleman coaches ride between 6 and 12 hours per week. Once you get into the 12, 13, and 15 hours, now you're talking about someone who's really competitive. The pros are doing 20 to 30 hours a week because they have the time. Right. If you don't have the time to recover from the time that you're training on your bike to cover adequately, I'll say, then you really shouldn't be putting that kind of time in on your bike, because all it's going to do is make you sleepy, grumpy, and probably not a really good person to hang out with, because you're just going to be tired all the time, and you'll be short as far as your temper goes. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it unless you have some ultimate goal out there. And if you have an ultimate goal out there where you want to become the next Sepp Kuss, and you want to get out there and race your bike and become like one of the greatest cyclists that ever came out of your hometown, then that's a different goal. But you got to look at your priorities, and you also got to look at your lifestyle, and you got to look at what fits in, and you got to look at the fact that in order to buy those nice fancy bicycles, you need to make some money. So there's that going on there. And maybe, you need to look at things in a little different way. I have a number of friends over the years that have integrated their training or their hours on a bike with commuting back and forth to their jobs, or commuting back and forth to run errands in town or whatever, and not taking those miles as seriously as the miles that they're going to be using for actual training. Or they may ride in like really super slow to work, and they spend a day at work, and then they, basically spend a little time warming their legs up on the way home and then, put their head down and go hard for the rest of the way home, or whatever it is. Or they change the route so it's a lot hillier on the way back. There's ways that you can play around with this. So you just really got to look at it. But if you're not a pro cyclist, you don't need to get so serious about it. And really, you just really kind of look at what works for you. What do you want? I talk about this a lot in the show. It really comes down to that. Do you want to be fit enough so that when you see that big hill in front of you, that you can get over the hill and go, ha, gotcha. That's a good thing, so maybe that's what you're looking for. Or do you just want to spend time just getting out and meeting people, other people, like-minded people on bicycles, and just having pleasant conversations with them and being able to ride at a level that is conversational and not competitive? Or are you part of that? I can't say the actual word because I don't want to get myself in trouble here on the show, but are you part of that weekly, what kind of ride it is, ride that everybody goes out to try to beat one another? That's kind of that's a thing. It happens. And so my recommendation, if you are one of those cyclists, is to go to some place where it's organized and safe, and not to go out and just pick randomly out riding on roads that there are cars on that you could get hurt. But anyway, that's another thing. So it really kind of depends on your fitness level and your experience and what you're looking for, what your goals are. And as I have said in the past, if your goal is focused on, let's say, a 100-mile ride or an event, you're going to go out to Ragbri and you're going to ride the Ragbri, and multiple days of riding many, many miles. If that's what you're doing, you gotta look at that date, and then you gotta look at your calendar and backpedal down to where you are now and where you need to be then, and then start filling in the gaps week by week until you work your way up to that goal. If you try to do it all overnight, it's just a recipe for disaster. So don't do that. And you're going to find out that if you haven't been on a bike in a while, your muscles are going to get really sore, and you're going to be gasping for air, and you're going to realize that, hey, this is kind of hard work. I have to do this. And it can be hard work. It can be whatever you make of it. So that's the most important part. Hey, good morning, Joel. Haven't seen you on for a while. Nice to see you here. So it's important that you just work yourself into what is best for you and what your goals are. And that's what you should do. So I'm going to move on from that. And that kind of covers the factors to determine how often you ride. I ride as much as I can. If I can, that's good. So, and some weeks I may ride every day. Some weeks I may only get a chance to ride a couple of days. It's okay. Doesn't matter. And most of the time, if I'm not riding outdoors, I'm riding indoors anyway, because I seem to have accumulated a lot of indoor cycling classes that I teach throughout the week. So that kind of keeps me motivated, let's say, and keeps me active. So it's all good. And I can choose to ride those as easy or as hard as I want. So again, you do what works for you and for your lifestyle, and maybe your family members and friends' lifestyle, so that you actually can still be a human being too, as well as a bike rider. So anyway, let's move on to what I ranted about earlier. And it's just this school bus thing, this parents driving their kids to school, and they don't let them ride their bikes anymore. They say it's dangerous, but you want to know why it's more dangerous? Tell you why. It's because there's too many cars on the road driving their kids to school. This is a no-brainer, okay? If you want to make the roads safer, stop driving your kids to school. Put them on the bus. Put them on the bus. This is an age-old argument. I had it many, many years ago when Greg was little. And again, I was a bus guy, and his mom was a drive him to school girl, whatever. So we had this conflict of what we felt was right. And of course that led to other things in our lives, but that's beside the point. The bus is there for a reason. The bus is there because you can put more kids on a bus, less cars on a road, which makes the road safer, which makes the bus technically safer than the cars are. Because if you take a look at the statistics, cars get in more accidents than buses do. That's pretty common and pretty well known. So it also does a number of things too. It teaches your student who is getting on the bus, it teaches them what mass transportation is all about, what organized mass transportation is all about. It teaches them to be responsible for their belongings when they get on and off the bus. It does a lot of different things. So we're going to explore this a little bit more, and why the benefits of choosing school buses for student transportation is a good thing. And then I also have something here, which is how dropping kids off at school became the norm, and what drives them to drive, parents' reasons for choosing the car to take their children to school. Yeah, it's all listed here. It's just kind of crazy to me, but it's what it is, and this is the world that we live in. And it also adds to our whole car-centric situation that we have here in this country. And I was just really kind of amazed, especially that California had such a low student school bus usage. That blows me away. Now, at the same time, California is it is a very car-centric state. It is, it's everybody's got cars everywhere. The roads are ridiculous out there. You take these freeways that are 4, 6, 8, 10 lanes wide, just crazy stuff. But, there's a solution to that. There is a huge solution to that. And it's not difficult. Not everybody has to have a car to individually transport themselves. But anyway, the benefits of choosing school buses for student transportation. This comes from a site called TransFinder, which is all about transportation. And anyway, many parents and guardians choose to make the use of the school buses nationwide, and they have plenty of great reasons to do so. School buses work towards improving safety, reducing tardiness, and contributing to the overall growth of kids. Let's take a look at the many benefits. Safety. Of course, parents and guardians' first concern about their children is their safety. School buses have continuously proven that they have a lower accident rate than passenger cars, and in most areas, prospective drivers are required to pass meticulous tests before they're allowed to get behind the wheel. Driving records and criminal histories of prospective drivers are also looked at closely before they're allowed to transport students anywhere. This in turn makes parents feel a sense of safety. School buses themselves are also built to be safe, as they're made with a lock so students cannot get out when the bus is moving, as well as closed windows that remain closed and can be taken out in case of an emergency. Of course, school buses are also hard to miss, seeing that they are bright yellow in color, and they have stop signs off the sides of them. Most of them have identifying numbers on the back in case of emergencies. So, the bus is really, it's like you're putting your kid into a really safe environment when you put them on the bus. Plus, you're teaching them things. Socialization. Some people will tell you that they made some of their most valuable friendships on none other than the good old school bus. Gaining the ability to create personal connections at a young age is critical, and the school bus is a perfect place to learn for that. Many students prefer to ride buses with their friends instead of sitting in a car with their parents. You know that one if you're a parent. Yeah. I don't want to get in a car with my mom or my dad. Yick. Right? Let me take the bus. I'll take the bus. Okay. Reduced tardiness. Okay. If you survey a group of parents about the pros and cons of choosing school buses for their kids, most will tell you it's a huge benefit that buses are on time and they will consistently come unless school is canceled, regardless of factors such as weather. School buses are extremely critical for many parents who have children attending different schools from one another, as there is no pick up and drop off snags and delays. School districts spend a lot of time figuring out which are the best routes for each of a school bus fleet, and they work meticulously to make sure the bus stops are accessible for all students. This is all good stuff. And of course, many of them are trackable. More and more school buses are equipped with GPS technology so parents can track their children. This is not only helpful because parents know what time the children are getting to school, what time they'll be arriving home, but they also gives parents a peace of mind to in the unfortunate event of a local emergency. School districts are also able to track which students did not board the bus on any given day, and then they can check with the parents or guardians, make sure the students are safe, and also notify the parents and guardians at their school that their kids are absent. Life lessons. Backpack, sweatshirt, check. Lunchbox, check. Opting to have the kids ride school buses also teaches responsibility. It's a good thing. It also teaches time management, so they know when they need to get to the bus stop. Greg and I used to get out to the bus stop about 5 minutes before the bus would show up, sometimes a little earlier, depending on how bad the weather was or how good the weather was. And my technique was to go to the paper tube and pull out the paper. Remember those things, papers? They're like, you pick them out, you open them up, they're big, they have news. Yeah. Anyway, showing my age, right? I know. So anyway, we used to use it for good conversation time in the morning to go over current events, what's going on. And I even got a major pat on the back by one of his history teachers because he was very impressed with how much Greg knew about world news. Wonder where that came from. So anyway, reduces traffic and pollution. Nobody likes sitting in rush hour, but if the kids take the buses, the parents don't have to be on the road on the way to schools or at home at that time. Most buses hold between 50 and 100 students before cutting down the number of cars on the road. Therefore, cutting down the number of cars on the road. Traffic congestion. So let's say you're going to transport 50 different kids to school in 50 different cars versus one bus. Is this like simple? It's pretty simple. And it also saves money and creates jobs because you have bus drivers and a lot of these drivers, they've been shuffling kids around for decades, and they love doing it because they get to see the kids and they get to know the kids. They know where the kids live. They oftentimes see the parents waiting at the bus stop with their kids. It becomes a social thing for everyone. Yay, buses. Let's hear it for buses. So, what's going on? Let's see what is going on here. Here's what it is. What drives them to drive? Parents' reasons for choosing a car to take their children to school. Now, bear in mind, you could also ride your child to school. When my son was really small, when he was young, he was first, second, third grade, he was in the elementary school. The elementary school was about 4.5 miles from here. And I would put Greg on the back of a tandem and we would ride there. And it was funny because, you'd see all these, you would see all these parents in the drop-off lines, and then all these school buses coming in, and I would just sit in line with him, and we'd roll up to the point where, you know, someone would be greeting him there, and he'd get off the bike, and everybody just thought that was the coolest thing. It is the coolest thing. You get to spend time with your child, riding your bike over there, okay, talking with them the whole way, observing things that are going on in and around the in around your neighborhood. Maybe you'll see some animals. You know, there's just so many talking points with it, and you're also creating a little bit of a level of exercise for your child too at the same time. So it's, you know, it's a good thing. I found riding him to school was a lot of fun. I just got a big kick out of it. Yeah, when I left, I rode off, and I had nobody on the back of the tandem, and I rode, and there was like an empty seat, but it didn't matter. I could still ride that. That's not a problem at all. And it was just a real good feeling. Now, if he had then moved on to having his own bicycle, we would have done that too, but Greg wasn't as big into the bicycle thing as Dad is. So that stands true right now too. Same thing. He hasn't figured it out yet. Maybe someday. That's what I always think this. Maybe someday he's going to put it together and go, wait a second.
I didn't figure it out until I was 40.
I could do this on a bicycle. Oh my God, why am I spending all this time, you know, jumping from one bus to a train to walking here and walking there when I could have just been there on my bike? You know, that was a big thing with COVID. COVID really like enlightened a lot of people as to how much more efficient it was to just ride your bike. So, you know, sometimes these things happen. And I like being self-sufficient, and being self-sufficient includes me being able to ride my bike wherever I want to go, which is helpful. So, why is it that this has changed so much to private cars instead of walking and cycling, with many who are entitled to free school bus services and they're still being driven? Earlier research into the travel mode choice has often investigated how urban form impacts upon mode choice regarding school journeys, in particular how urban form hinders or enables the use of the active mode. This particular paper explored parents' stated reasons for choosing a car and the relationship between these reasons and the decision to use the car when they were taking their children to school. And they investigated the relationship between socio-demographic factors, distance, both stated reasons and an actual mode decision. An example of 245 parents, 194 of them women, of school children between the age of 10 to 15 in the county of Värmland in Sweden were included in the study. The results show that the factor social convenience has a direct relationship with the frequency of car use, indicating that the wish to accompany the child and the convenience of a car impacts on the car choice. Again, you could do this with a bicycle. If the child is not allowed to travel independently, the parents chose the car to take him or her to school. Socio-demographic factors had direct relationship with the stated reasons whereby parents with a higher level of education valued safety and security less. Quite surprisingly, distance, environmental factor, did not affect car use, indicating that parents drive their children to school regardless of distance. By isolating the particular reasons for choosing a car, the focus was on potentially important missing piece as regards to finding out what motivates the increasing car usage in children's school journeys. And increased knowledge of what motivates the decision to take children by car is important for effective policies aimed at changing parents' inclination towards using a car. So it's just over the decades, children's school journey patterns have been changing. They're traveling longer distances, and more frequently by car. So there are regional schools that have popped up where you have what used to be 3 different schools. We just did this in our town. There were 3 different elementary schools in town. Now there's 1 elementary school. So the kids that were on the far end of town from that school, and they had their own regional, they had their own small school there, now have to travel a little farther. So there, you would think, would increase bus usage, but it does not. And that's the thing that is really, really weird about this. So I think, what I used to hear from Greg's mom was she didn't think the buses were safe. Now, that was a weak argument, because the argument is actually that cars are less safe than the buses are. And that, yes, you do hear about bus accidents with kids on them. It does happen. But you hear about a lot more car accidents than you do bus accidents. And here's my big gripe here, and the thing that I would really like to focus on, and that is, if you do choose to ride your child to school with a bicycle, or maybe walk to school, do the walking thing, it's a lot more dangerous than it used to be, because of the increase in parents driving their kids to school. So what they're trying to do to make it safer for their kids is actually making it not safe for everyone. So it's sort of a selfish thing, that you would do something like that. Parents who regularly chose a car seem to have different thoughts regarding what constitutes close enough distance to enable walking or cycling to school, in comparison with parents who choose active travel for their children, even though they share the same distance between home and school. So distance between home and school may influence how parents value their child's ability to safely navigate traffic, handle the decision to take or not take the car. There's, I think that Fran's sister, Nancy, she lives down in New Jersey, and I think those kids were walking to school.
Yes.
And because they could walk to school.
They either take the bus or they walk. She does not drive them.
Right. She doesn't drive them. So they either take the
Harry
bus or they walk. Well, Harry's now old enough to drive, so that's a privilege situation. But the fact is, the school wasn't really that far away. We've walked over to that school numerous times when we've been down there. And it's really like a 10-minute walk and you're there. So that is a good thing. But now parents are looking at the fact that to walk or cycle to school, they feel that it is not safe because there are too many cars on the road. Well, let's look at why there's too many cars on the road. Because more parents are driving their kids to school. So, this isn't rocket science, okay? It's not even, traffic engineering 101. This is very, very simple. Stop driving your kids to school. Let them take the big yellow limo. I remember that. I heard the first time I ever heard the reference of the big yellow limo was when I was at a bicycle shop over in Rhode Island, and I was chatting with the folks who owned the bike shop, and they were complaining about their teenage son who was moaning about the fact that his mom and dad wouldn't drive him to school on their way to work. And they just shook their heads and said, no, you're taking the big yellow limo. That's it. That's what they called it. And I just thought that was really funny. But anyway, it's a safe way. It makes more sense. It creates less pollution. There's just a bunch of reasons why it's better to use the bus. And then we haven't even gotten into the whole people bicycle bus thing, where you get a group of kids together with parents surrounding them, and you ride them all together off to school, and it's what they call a bike bus, and that is
That's
thing.
Exciting.
That is the thing that is happening. It's starting to grow in certain areas and certain neighborhoods, and it's becoming a thing because you get to go out and ride your bike to school with all your friends, and you do it safely because you basically take up the space of a bus going down the road with lots of kids, and no one's going to run you over, or no one's going to have, difficulty with that. And if they do, they'll find another route to get around you. But anyway, that's another thing. So there's just so many reasons why it's not a good idea, and there are so many excuses why parents think it is a good idea, and that's very unfortunate because there's one thing I can tell you is that ignorance is curable, and this is truly an ignorance problem on the fact with the parents. So how did this become a normal thing? That's a really good question. The majority of U.S. students now arrive at school in private cars, as per a Washington Post analysis of U.S. government data. The long-term rides and potential school runs has been compounded since the pandemic by a shortage of bus routes and drivers. Well, there's a problem. There are not as many drivers. There's a lot of drivers who gave up during COVID and said, I'm not going to do this anymore because, first of all, there's no one to drive. There's no school to drive the kids to, so that becomes a problem. And so now they don't have a job, which is another problem. And then when they find a different job, they oftentimes won't go back to driving the bus because they've got something else that has replaced it. So there is a severe bus driver shortage, and you see the signs out all the time for this. Drivers needed, please apply here, and of course, in order to be a bus driver, you have to pass a certification. You have to get a special license to do that so that you're safe when you're driving the thing. So it's a lot harder to maintain good drivers by doing that. So and a few cities, including Baltimore, have even tried paying some parents to drive their kids to reduce the demand for buses. Oh my God. That's like backwards. It's backwards. So the decline in bus ridership is a more recent phenomenon. In addition to reduced availability of buses, the Washington Post cites the rise in remote work as one reason parents are more likely to drive their kids. I'm completely missing on that one. If you are working remotely at home, right, and you need to be at work at home, wouldn't it be better use of your time to put your child on the bus and then go back to work, knowing that your child is going to get there safely and knowing when that bus will come back to drop them off at the end of the day, and then you can interrupt your work schedule by doing that. That just, anyway, this is becoming a real problem. Obviously, California is the big issue. 9% of the kids ride the public bus transportation to get to school. 9%? Really? That's scary. How do they get to school otherwise? Private cars. What do we get when we get private cars? We get congestion, we get confusion, we get pollution, we get less security. It's unsafe. So anyway, that's my talk today about this. I really wanted to kind of pin this down, and I'm going to ask the question, and I'll ask it at the end of the show too. Anybody who wants to leave me comments on this, I'd love to know. If you still have kids and you're listening to the show, are you driving them to school? Are you not? Are you letting them walk? Are you letting them ride their bikes? What are your concerns? I'd love to hear about this. So please comment. Please comment down below, or comment at bicycletalk1@gmail.com, because I want to know exactly what it is that is influencing your decision to have your child transported to school in whatever way it may be. So I want to hear both ends, all ends, whatever it is. Please reach out. Let's move on to the bicycle racing world. Yeah, we've got some crazy stuff going on. A couple more classics went by this past week. La Flèche Wallonne. It was just like an amazing weather situation. The weather was horrible. It's, 40 degrees and raining, 38 degrees and raining, cold, miserable. These guys are freezing. Their hands are frozen on the handlebars. There are a few things here that I have highlighted. But the Muir de Huy, which is which was a critical climb in the La Flèche Wallonne, just unbelievable, 17-18% grade, nasty, and Stevie Williams with a bold move at 300 meters to go just launched, and it was just great. It was great to watch him go. He went early. Nobody expected him to go. I don't know if he expected to even last. It was really cool. I love to see an underdog blast past everyone and take the win to win. It doesn't get much better than that. So that was very, very cool. On the other side of that, just so you know, the weather was just horrible. And in both the races, but there were people that were pulled out of the race because they're hypothermic, and it was just messy. So there was a video of this one rider. He's just shaking like a leaf, and they're just trying to bundle him up and throw a blanket on him and throw him in the back of a team car because he was done, and he had a great race the previous year. It just happens. Liege Bastion Liege, that was Sunday. What can I say? The weather started at about 38 degrees. Same thing, very cold, very nasty. Off and on showers, just really not a great time to be racing your bicycle. But, there they are. They're out there racing their bikes. It's all part of the Classic Series and the Pro Tour. And so what can I say about the Liege Bastion Liege? It's Tadej time. Yeah, Pogačar rode away from the competition with 34.8 kilometers to go. The weather was high 30s. Not good, right? And this guy just launched, and nobody could stay with him. Nobody. And not even Mathieu van der Poel, who had been doing this to others in these classic pelotons for weeks before this. So it was just like incredible. He got out there, he stayed out there, he just kind of put himself into a zone, and he looked good. Looked really comfortable on his bike. Looks really good. This could be Tadej's year. And, we'll see. He's sort of a lone wolf, he rides for a team, and he's got teammates, and he thanked his teammates after the race and all for it. But he does have a tendency to be kind of a loner when it comes to this sort of thing. He soloed away, 34.8 kilometers to go, and he won the race by 1 minute and 39 seconds. So he put a big gap on. Meanwhile, Romain Bardet pulls off a sneak away. That's what I call it. There's a breakaway, and then there's a sneak away. This was a sneak away. And what he did was he launched an attack near the end of the race, and he was, trying to catch Pogačar, which just wasn't going to happen. But he was able to hold it, and he kept looking over his shoulder. He could see him coming. He just kept on it. And Romain Bardet snuck away for second place, and Mathieu van der Poel came in. This was all with the chase group that was chasing, trying to pull Pogačar back in. And anyway, Mathieu van der Poel launched a wattage display, which gave him third place for the first place in the sprint. it was exciting. Great race to watch. If you like watching bike racing, it's always fun. And anyway, I definitely enjoyed it. And, Tadej Pogačar, sensational solo victory. Is he gearing up for the Giro? Is he gearing up for the Tour de France? I mean, what's going on? This is really, really good stuff. He's no doubt viewed the win as settling unfinished business after crashing out in the 2023 version. He finished 1:39 ahead of the solo chase by a smiling Romain Bardet, and Mathieu van der Poel, of course, getting third. Bardet, after the race, was in tears. He was just so overwhelmed with what he had done, and it's just cool. I love bike racing. Bike racing is just, it's entertaining, it's emotional, it's fun. It's I have the utmost respect for these people who race bicycles, because this is not an easy way to make a living, that's for sure. Speaking of not easy and making a living, I have to mention that Sepp Kuss, remember Sepp Kuss? He won the Vuelta a España last year. Guess what? He's going to return to competition by leading the Visma Lease bike team in the Tour Critérium du Dauphiné. Now, the Critérium du Dauphiné that's kind of a lead up for the Tour de France. That's one of the big races. It's a multiple day race. It's a stage race. And it's a place that contenders that are looking at a position on the Tour de France team, or maybe in the Giro, it's a great place for them to kind of test their skills and test their mettle and see where they're at as far as that goes. So Sepp is going to be the guy. He's going to be the GC guy in the Critérium du Dauphiné. So we'll see what happens. Wish him all the best after an amazing year last year. And now the way things are going with the crash outs and the injuries and all that, he's got himself in a pretty good position right now. He got a lot of recognition last year. Can he win a Tour de France? Can he win a Giro d'Italia? I don't know. I'm not really sure. But if you're riding for the Visma team, there's definitely a lot of people working for you. And that is that's a formula that seems to be working fairly well. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, yeah, Sepp is going to be back. I can't wait. That'll be a fun thing. So what else do I have here? People on bikes come together as advocates, no matter why they ride. Can sports cyclists and utility riders become a powerful coalition to make our streets better? So absolutely they must. That's what this looks like. This came from a Streets blog, and let's see here. And it's not coming up here. So anyway, I'm gonna pass on it for next week. Oh, here we are. Never mind. So there's actually a podcast on this it's called The Break. People on bikes can come together as advocates. It's an interesting podcast. It's about 20 minutes long, and certainly recommend it as far as that goes. The podcast is called The Break, so you might want to check it out. It talks a lot about we as cyclists, as people out on bicycles, how we really need to get more active and make things happen. And I'm finding that the more that we're making things happen in our town, the more things we're getting done and the more attention we're getting. People don't dislike bicycles. They find them annoying sometimes because they get stuck behind them. But in general, a bicycle is a fairly friendly machine. It's not something that is going to make an intimidating situation with motorists down the road. Bikes are ridden by people. They're out. The people are out. They're exposed. They're vulnerable, and so it can happen. Now, bike racers, they tend to be a little bit more intimidating just because of sometimes there's some attitudes out there, which is a problem. But in general, commuters are really like a, kind of a nice thing to see on the roads. So we just got to get out. We got to make our stance. We got to, as I've said, get loud. We got to get loud. You got to let it happen. That's going to move me on to my events page here because we have just about run out of time here today. So I'm going to go on to that and talk a little bit about the Sea Otter Classic is now over, and apparently it was very successful, and there were all sorts of interesting new gadgets and things that were being shown there. So if anybody got a chance to go, why don't you give me a shout out and tell me what you saw that was really interesting, because it's kind of a cool festival out in California. For my Australian listeners, the Mage Australia show will be June 28th and 29th. At the Darebin International Sports Center in Thornbury, Victoria, near Melbourne. The second Made show was in Portland, Oregon, and on August 23rd through the 25th. Those are great handmade shows if you're into handmade bicycles, nice steel stuff, and other materials too. Domestic events coming up this fall. The Lime Rock Epic is coming real soon. Another thing that is happening pretty soon, June 1st, is the Best Buddies Ride. And that is out of the Boston area and out to Hyannisport. So, and hopefully I will be participating in that this year. And that's a really cool event. I really had a lot of fun with that last year. The Ride of Silence is Wednesday, May 15th, rain or shine, 7 p.m. Sharp rollout. Remember, get there at least a half an hour before so you can sign in. That's at 10 South Eagleville Road in Mansfield, Connecticut. People can come from all over. We are reaching out all across the state, even across borders to Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Anybody who wishes to make a statement about bicycle safety on the road, the Ride of Silence is the way to go. It's a 3.5-mile loop. It's 10 to 12 miles an hour at the most. Helmets are required, and it's kid friendly. So we would love to see you there. We will also be escorted by the Yukon Police Department. So it is very, very safe. Join the Ride for the East on June 8th from the Gilson House in Willimantic. That's Saturday, June 8th at 7:30 a.m. You explore the scenic airline trail with the East Coast Greenway Alliance and Trust for Public Land.
I'm not sure which one I want to do.
That is a 48-mile or an 18-mile ride on the Stone Dust Trails. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
And the 2024 Steeplechase Ride Walk Saturday, August 17th. Road rides including 20, 35, and 62 miles, a 5-mile fundraising walk, and in addition to last year's 18-mile gravel ride, there will be an additional 40-mile gravel route available, 90% dirt roads and trails. Very cool. Project Mayhem Cyclocross is coming up this fall. Stay tuned. I'll have more to talk about on that. And finishing points. So, the end of the classics. What'd you think? So I have to ask, with May approaching, do you let your child ride or walk to school? Do they ride the big yellow limo, or do you just drive your kids to school? If so, what are your reasons? We love those listener comments. Just keep them coming. So 2024, more miles, ride and commute to work or around town, better fitness, or simply enjoying the bike rides you take more by slowing down and smelling the roses. I'm going to say it again. It won't be my last time. Get loud, get active. Our time has come. Stop complaining about traffic, dangerous roads, the price of gas, the lack of places to safely ride your bike, and join the revolution of change. Hey, take a day off and park that car or truck and ride your bicycle instead. You just might surprise yourself. The views expressed in this program do not reflect the views of the staff, management, or licensee of this station. You've been listening to Bicycle Talk with my friendly co-host, the lovely Dr. Fran Storch. If you're watching on Facebook Live, feel free to comment below. If you're listening to this in an audio file, Bicycle Talk, the numeral 1, at gmail.com. You can listen to past episodes of Bicycle Talk on whus.org, iTunes, Spotify, and now on my Bicycle Talk YouTube channel. Want to contribute information? Reach out to me with an email. This is Pedalin' Ron. Remember, keep that rubber side down and the wind at your back. get out and ride your bike. It really could save your life. This is 91.7 FM, WHUS Stores, and WHUS.org. Thanks for listening. See you next week.